Joining us to talk about the end of the ceasefire and more is retired Marine intelligence officer, national security expert, and also co-host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfert. Hal, thanks so much for being with me tonight. I want to get just straight to this idea that there are about 136 hostages that do remain in Hamas custody. Do you foresee them ever being freed?
Marla, it's tough to tell. Yes, at some point, although we don't know how many of them are alive, and that's kind of a grisly fact. And Hamas was having trouble at the end of the ceasefire really providing names, which certainly got the Israelis very suspicious that maybe they don't have control of them, maybe they don't have them at all, and maybe they can't return them. So I don't know if all 135 or 130 will be returned, but it's a real question mark as to how they're going to get out of there. And the other problem is, will the fighting stop before basically the IDF is cleared or completed combat operations in the south? And of course, the fear that some of the hostages might get caught in Israeli airstrikes or simply be executed by Hamas.
Do you foresee another ceasefire happening, temporary?
You know, we're all asking ourselves that same question. Okay. No one knows for sure. It's possible, but I got to tell you that the way things broke down, it makes it unlikely. But I do know that the Qataris, the U.S., and others are working very hard to try and put something back into place.
All right, let me ask you about New York Times did some reporting that essentially exposed that the Israeli government was warned more than a year ago about the Hamas attack plan, and Israeli officials, despite looking at this document, did not act, really didn't take it seriously. We talked to you soon after October the 7th. You called this an intelligence failure. Do you still regard this as an intelligence failure?
Well, a lot of intelligence failures are decision-making failures. And, you know, I've done the senior intelligence officer. You take things, you know, up the chain, shall we say. And at some point, the policymakers, the decision makers have other priorities. And what you're saying doesn't fit their narrative. And frankly, as an intelligence officer, a lot of times you're not bringing them good news, if you know what I mean. And so they don't want to hear it. So there's ways of dismissing that in the planning process. That kind of sounds what was being done here. I will say that what they should have done with an exhaustive analytical product like this is readjust their entire intelligence collection plan in the Gaza Strip. There was very detailed things for indications and warning that could have been implemented, that they could have. They certainly had time to do that. But it does appear they had other priorities, either the IDF, Shin Bet, or the Netanyahu administration. And they just didn't take the action that this report probably would have indicated they should have.
I mean, because law enforcement always tells us as the general public, if you see something, say something. Well, they certainly, you know, according to this reporting, they saw something in these documents, yet they didn't say anything. Who should be held responsible and have some accountability for this? IDF? Benjamin Netanyahu?
Marla, ultimately, if you're in charge, you're ultimately responsible for everything your government does or fails to do. So the Netanyahu himself holds ultimate responsibility, and for him to blame others really doesn't say much about the way his administration, if he didn't know about this, and he should have. If there was some breakdown, then it needs to come out. But what they're saying, and the IDF said it very well today, they said, look, there's going to be time to go back and point fingers and exhaustively analyze who should have done what. But right now, they're in the middle of war fighting, and their focus is on prosecuting the war at hand, not to blame who failed to do what way back when.
Very good. Okay, well, we know that you talk about a lot of these topics, these heavy issues on your podcast. It is called the Strat, Strategic Risk Assessment Talk podcast. You can find that on Spotify and almost all major podcast platforms. I'm going to be listening to you, Hal. You're always a wealth of information, so thanks so much for being with me tonight.
Thank you, Marla.